Something that was actually, you mentioned this is really funny. One of the most important lessons that I learned in theory, especially when you're doing like, if you've got to do like figured bass or your Schenkerian analysis or whatever.
It's just like complaining about Ben Shapiro music takes. My goodness.
Dude, I don't know.
He's talked about it a couple of times with like rap is not music because we
Okay.
have three elements in music: melody, harmony, and rhythm. Like, hello?
Hello?
Hey, sorry, give me 1 second. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Cool, man. How you doing?
pretty good. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. I just saw a really dope movie today. Have you heard about what is it? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Nope.
Uh, that's actually better because I saw the trailer, don't really remember it, and when I watched it fresh, it was
You
really
have the
good.
exact
Highly
time and
recommend it.
place.
Oh, well, cool. Well, you are here to talk about
Exciting.
music stuff.
I'm one of your silent viewers.
One of my silent viewer. Wait, what is that movie about? I'm sorry, it's late for me.
Um, it's essentially about a Asian family, Chinese family, I think.
Okay, I changed my mind. I don't care what
And
the movie's about. I'll see it though. Give me a second. Okay, hit me up with the music
it's
stuff.
it's a lot more than that. But I was just yeah.
Okay,
Ignore anything I said about whatever. Just check out the movie. Go
gotcha.
in go in go in fresh.
Okay. All right. Oh, it's an A24 movie. Oh, I probably will see it then.
It was very refreshing. Out of like all of the movies I've seen recently, I feel like where everything is like pandered to a certain. Well, never mind. We're here to talk about music, not
Yeah.
movies.
Okay, what do you got?
So blues. I wanted to. I was watching your stream, and you were doing some stuff, and you were trying to figure out like, is this really how it works? And
Oh, I was
you
just
were
curious if like, so if we think of like 12 bar blues in the key of C, right?
Mhm. Can
Um,
you play your piano? Can I hear it through Discord?
sure, I think. You can hear
Yeah,
this?
cool.
Yeah. So if we have
So
12 bar blues in the key of C, I'm just curious, like, does the C blues scale really work? Because you've got like an E flat, which is really weird.
so you should clarify. You're playing technically what's called the C minor blues scale. There's also a major blues scale.
What the fuck is the C major blues scale?
Well, easiest way to understand the major blues scale is take the C minor blues scale pattern you've got, start it on E flat, and just go from E flat to E flat. And what you've got is the E flat major blues. Pretty
Fuck.
much there, yeah, almost there.
Oh.
Yep,
Yeah? Okay.
yep. So if you were able to kind of transpose that into this key of C, or I can just tell you the notes. It's going to be C, D, D sharp, E, G, A, C.
Oh. Is that it?
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So the thing to kind of keep in mind about blues is from a melodic and a harmonic standpoint, it's both at the same time.
Both what at the same
And
time?
major and minor tonality.
Okay.
A really good way that I can explain that, I remember on your stream, you were actually in your left hand when you were doing the bass. So background for me, I'm a bass player.
Okay.
You were playing C, E, G, A, B flat, like da 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 da
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah.
So how much do you know about your chords, like in terms of triads or like seven chords?
I know everything about chords. What about them?
So when you play that, essentially what you're playing in that left hand thing is you've got a major third, which is your E, and then you've got a minor seven, which is your B flat. So that right there is an example of you're kind of using major and minor at the same time.
Um,
Even though, so yeah, B flat, you're kind of what you're outlining is what you probably also know is like a mixolydian mode or like a dominant chord.
yeah, I would probably refer to it as a dominant chord. Jazzy wise, I would think of it in terms of mixolydian, sure. But yeah, technically it's a major minor chord, I guess. If you're measuring by thirds, you call it major minor. If you're talking dominant
Yeah.
sevens, you call it sure. Yeah.
And when you think about like tonic or like one chord or like home bass in terms of whatever key you might be in the blues, you're not always going to hear that one chord be like a major seven, right? Like you're not going to always hear it be C E G B.
Sure. Probably
It's
never in
not it's
jazz,
not
right?
a,
Yeah.
it's not unlikely, but it's not like the primary sort of color that blues musicians use as home bass.
Uh-huh.
Another really good example of how you can kind of like use major and minor colors in the same is have you ever heard, how well do you know like your extensions?
I know
And by that I mean
everything.
like
I was a I wanted to be a composition minor.
okay,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So play like a, can you do like a C7 with a sharp 9?
If you're just saying C7, I'm assuming that you mean.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what you've got right there is that high note, that sharp 9 is also like, if you think about it enharmonically, it's a minor third.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You're playing a minor and a major third at the same time in that one chord.
Okay.
It's just spread out.
Okay, sure. So things like in a jazz sense, your voicings are going to be really important to make these chords sound good, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure. That's why you're probably not going to hear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's more or less the thing that I would wanted to kind of have you keep in the back of your mind when you're thinking about the blues.
Okay. So basically, mixed tonalities. There might be some flats in some places, but they exist in other places. It's not like a weird thing.
Yeah, and so while like the piano player, the bass player might be walking over what is very clearly like a major or I guess a dominant kind of color, in your solos or even in like the melody on certain heads, you're going to very commonly hear just a minor pentatonic or a minor blues or just like a kind of leaning into that a little bit. And I mean, it's using both major and minor depending on what part of the tune you're at as well, right?
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any other kind of questions? I mean, I would love to pick your brain about music in general, but I don't want to overstay my welcome.
It's pretty late for me, but I'll give you 5 or 10 minutes if you want to go for it.
Okay, so you always talk about like life lessons that you've learned just through music.
Have I?
And
Okay.
I wanted to kind of share one with you that I learned through music that's actually like something that you've been struggling to explain just in your political conversations in general, actually. So like you had this moment with I think Brittany the other day where you were trying to express like you enjoy sort of the struggle of dealing with a lot of the flack of being on like Twitter or whatever, and how you don't take a lot of like emotional damage from it or psychological damage from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of, do you remember that conversation or that like feeling you've talked about before?
Yeah.
So one of my music teachers put it in a perfect way. If you think about it in terms of struggling versus suffering, people want to struggle if you think about it in that way, because it means you're working towards something, but you don't want to be suffering while you do it, right?
Sure. Or suffering seems like pain that's like purposeless, right?
Yeah, where there's like no end in sight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one. The other one for me is the importance of listening, just in music. And
sure.
Like the thing that really hit me when it did was the idea of being a good musician. You got to be, if you want to be a good player, you got to be a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized, oh shit, that applies to like all art forms. If you want to be a good writer, you got to be a good reader. If you want to be a good movie director, you got to be good at watching movies and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was just sort of like an eye opener.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. Obviously, yeah.
Man, you're just rolling right through all the things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing, I guess, and I'll let you go. What are your thoughts on a guy? Have you ever heard of a guy named Jacob Collier?
Yeah.
What do you think about him?
I really like music theory. I'm super big on it. I super enjoy it. I love theory, and I love, like, my brain is a sponge for more music theoretical information. Sometimes I feel like some people go a little bit too far, and we get into like very woo-woo things that I don't know if I believe it. Collier will frequently dip into topics like when he talks about how like these are like I think he'll say like the flatter keys have like a warmer sound and sharper keys have like a brighter sound. I don't know if I buy that 100%.
He's also, yeah, I think it's been when he's talking about like the circle of fifths, right?
Yes,
when you go
yeah.
in one direction, it's brighter,
It gets
and when you
brighter
go in
and darker. I don't know if I feel that as much. I mean, his stuff, obviously, when he's talking about like just intonation versus like equal temperament, like or even temperament, like there's stuff here that you can obviously hear. But I think he's a cool dude. I like his theory. I like people that like really push the edges. But sometimes I feel like his theory stuff, like I'll understand everything being said. I just don't know if I 100% buy into what exactly is happening. Something that was actually, you mentioned this, is really funny. One of the most important lessons that I learned in theory, especially when you're doing like, if you've got to do like figured bass or your Schenkerian analysis or whatever. Did you ever go to school for music, or?
I did, yeah. I actually got a bachelor's in it.
Okay. Have you ever been like 6 bars into analysis and you're looking at like a very classical era piece and you're writing like 3 diminished 5/2 chords or some shit, and you're like, what the fuck am I writing? Like, what is happening? And then you take a break, you take a step back, and then you like play the actual music and you listen to it and you're like, oh, this sounds like a fucking like a 5/7 of whatever chord. This is a key change. Like,
yeah.
You take a step back and it's like, okay, let's get rid of the fucking paper, okay? Because this is music, and let's just listen. What do we fucking hear? And then when you hear it, you're like, oh, it's so obvious. Like this is a cadence at least. Like I know what it is now, right? Yeah, I try to make sure that like when I hear him talk about something, I'm like, okay, like I can see on paper this, but if I like take a step back and actually listen to it, I'm actually hearing what's being said. I don't know if I feel that as much. So that's usually like my go-to.
So you
is
say you don't hear how certain things might get brighter or darker the way he describes it?
I don't know if I believe that it's getting brighter and darker because we're adding sharps or flats versus it's more just kind of like this relative tonality that we're hearing versus like, and I don't know how far he takes it to like, oh, I'll have people say things like, oh, like my favorite key is D. You know, like, have you ever met musicians that are like that? They're like, yeah, I think that things written in D sound better or happier than things written in. Yeah, I don't know if I believe that. Yeah.
That's I've never had one. I'm not going to try to take that away from other people. Like if that's their thing. Yeah, I think so. Like real quick when you were talking about like the bar 6, like when you realize, like just take a second to listen. Another good example of that is like Neapolitan chords, or like what gets described as like Neapolitan chords, or like
are these flat
German
6s? I think.
What's that?
Is it Neapolitan? Is that a flat 6 chord?
I don't remember it exactly from a classical sense because I haven't been in school for a minute, but the way I understand it from like a jazz mindset is like the idea of tritone subs. That's functionally the same effect if you were to just listen to what's happening.
Gotcha. It might be a flat 2 also. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, okay, gotcha, yeah. Yeah, the more theory you learn, it's a lot like math, actually. I don't know if you ever took a lot of math, but as you get further and further into math, like everything ends up connecting to everything else because it's math. It all builds off each other. And music theory is like very much like the exact same. Like it's why like you can't, if you don't know your circle of fourths, like everything is going to be harder for you. And then you learn like basic stuff like the order of sharps and flats, and then you learn more complicated things. But you see like it all kind of like ties into itself. And the more you learn, the more everything else you know like should make even more and more sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of teach private lessons, and the thing that I always leave the window open for, do you want to like explore theory and stuff? But I generally prefer to start from like, let's just start with songs that you like and figure out how to keep playing songs you like so that you want to keep coming back. And oh fuck, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Damn it. Oh no, I remember. One of the things I always try to keep in mind in my lessons is, you know, when I explain something, I always follow it up with, did you hear it as well? Right?
Yeah.
It means nothing if I just say it at you and you're just like, yeah. But if you're going to lie to me about anything, don't lie to me about that. Yeah. Did you hear it as well? It's just the ear is just so important, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess while I've got this chance, God, you did very well in the fucking Eric Stryker conversation and the Mio conversation where they both like put their foots in their mouth regarding music.
Because for some reason Nazis want to debate about fucking music. Yeah, Jesus.
Oh my God! When he called it, what was it? Stryker called it jazz was a bastardization of
version. Oh my God. Bro, if you want to get into some crazy fucking music theory with insane structure, like jazz is where you go. Like, dude, fuck that shit, dude. Oh my God, you will see like the crazy, like the only way you could say something like that is if you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, and I hate that my audience doesn't realize how unbelievably clueless you have to be. Like, it's the equivalent to saying that like neurosurgery is like such a basic form of like medicine. Like the idea of operating the brain, like that's the equivalent to saying like jazz harmony is simplistic. Like, holy shit.
You don't even need to get into the harmony. You can just be like, dude, are you implying that everything that comes out of jazz is in 3?
Sure, even or just any, yeah, just the whole like, oh God, it was just so dumb. Yeah, it was unbelievably stupid for him to say that. Yeah, oh God.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Again, I can keep going if you wanted to, but I don't want to. I know you said you wanted to get some sleep, so if you ever want to talk about something in the future, I can always hit you up. But or
Um,
if there's something else that like if I catch something like that, it comes up again,
mhm.
I'll just be like, put me in coach or some shit.
Yeah, you can always shoot me a message if you want to. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to think of if I have another random question. No, fuck, I don't think I do. Okay. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate the conversation. If there's anything else you can think of, feel free to shoot me a DM or email or whatever, yeah?
How much? Okay, the last question, I guess,
Yeah.
is how much would you want to? How much interest do you have in diving into? Well, actually, no, that's fine. I'm not going to try to
Well,
convince
you've already
you.
asked half the questions, so you have to ask the rest, right?
Okay, how interested are you in diving deeper into anything close to jazz or just things related to it, like regarding like understanding, I guess, and at the level of being able to play it.
I mean, I think that like I said, I wanted to be a composition minor. I know a lot. I know a lot when it comes to theory. Playing it would be a matter of like actually starting to practice it, like on the piano. I just don't have the ear for a lot of jazz. I don't think. Like I really like the sounds of like very basic, like modally stuff. So like I like chords with lots of extensions. I think sound nice, especially when you start like getting into like minor ninths and shit. I think sound cool. But in terms of like playing jazz, I don't know if I have the ear or desire for it. It would be a lot too to learn like on piano as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
Yeah.
What is some examples of jazz that you like or musicians that you liked when you were learning about it in school? I think I remember you talking about Dexter Gordon one time.
Man, it's gonna sound so bad because I was a saxophone. I was a woodwind performance major. Okay, the alto saxophone instrument. I didn't like any. I didn't like any of them. Um, I didn't, man. I transcribed solos from kind of Blue, from Adderley, Cannibal Adderley, like these different musicians. We listened to a lot of Coltrane shit. My favorite musician through high school, honest to God, was actually John
Yeah,
Mayer. I thought that he writes really good songs. I thought he was like a
yeah.
pretty mature guitar player for being at an early age. I liked his noodling and everything. Yeah, that was like probably one of my favorite. And then all of my favorite like musicians ended up being guitar players. David Gilmour, obviously. There's a guy from the Flower Kings called Roy Stolt. His guitar playing I thought was really cool. Like a lot of like bluesy, jazzy guitar players. A little bit of Steve Vai. Joe Satriani, a lot of his stuff. Yeah, it was all guitar players. Like fuck me, but yeah, these are the people that I ended up liking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, when it
Yeah.
comes to somebody like John Mayer, I know that like people who have like the jazz background, there are still plenty of like I guess we'll call them mainstream or pop people that
Mm-hmm.
still are like that garner a lot of their respect. So have you ever heard of like oh God, what's a good example I guess today? I guess one of my favorite like popular albums that came out recently is the Silk Sonic album. Have you ever heard of that?
Nope.
It's Anderson .Paak on drums and Bruno Mars basically doing like an album which is just like a love letter to 70s music.
Oh, okay.
And as far as just intent and execution, they nailed it.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
For contemporary jazz, there are two groups. One is called Bad Bad Not Good. Have you ever heard of them?
Uh, no, actually.
Super cool, awesome contemporary group. I love them and I love
Okay.
what they do. And then there was a another group called Snarky Puppy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool contemporary people. And then sometimes they bring in people from like the professional jazz world that I really like. Obviously, being a saxophone player, whether you like jazz or not. Oh my God, what's his name? He's like the
Chris
best.
Potter.
Yes, yeah, he's like the best saxophone player alive, like probably undoubtedly.
Mhm.
Yeah, hearing him like solo over Lingus was like really cute. I like that. Um, yeah, so yeah, yeah, I think those are probably the two most like modern groups that I can think of that I like that are trying to like make jazz a little bit more modern, which I think is cool. Do you work like in academic institutions or do you go around gigging or?
I used to right out of graduating from music school, I was doing a lot of gigging and I was doing a lot of gigging in it. Right now, because of like the partially because of the pandemic, I've been doing this 9 to 5 office job for the last couple of years, but I've been like teaching private lessons the whole time, and my wife goes to school for music,
Mhm.
so I'm still kind of around it, but pretty soon I'm trying to kind of get back into the grind of, going to jam sessions, practicing a lot more, and trying to like get familiar with the musicians in the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha.
We can also, I mean, I guess while I've got the opportunity, but this is also being a kind of circle jerky, is just like complaining about Ben Shapiro music takes. My goodness.
Dude, I don't know what it is. Conservatives just can't talk about art. Wow, it's really sad.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I would love you. You kind of tried it a couple of times, but I would love for you to have a full-fledged conversation with Lauren Southern just about kind of like the way the culture is kind of like landed.
She's aware of it. We argue about it privately sometimes, and she's very much aware of it and expresses the same, even if she won't fucking say it publicly. She expresses the same concern. They're like, because conservatives told all their kids to like go be scientists and shit, so they like totally gave the art world up. And there's a huge problem with like conservatives just can't fucking do art, and it's fucking horrible. And yeah, listening to Ben Shapiro, who is a violin or cello player, I think a violin player.
A violin player, and who also has a dad who was a music teacher. Don't forget that.
Like to have. But then again, maybe it's not even real. Maybe he just says it all for show. I don't know. His musical analysis blew my mind. I couldn't believe how brainless he was. It was unbelievable. But yeah, just
some of it I think just comes from what kind of stuff he learned. So like I've heard him say before, like the interval of major seventh is like dissonant, and for me, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's something that I have actually kind of heard from a couple of people. It's still ridiculous to me, but
I mean, I would go full Collier here, and I would say that like the inherent dissonance of anything is always going to depend on what it shows up in, right? Because major sevens are going to sound like that's like these are like my favorite things. Like I don't think people hear stuff like that and think like major dissonance, right? But yeah, it depends on I guess on how classical.
There's like whenever he talks about because he's talked about it a couple of times with like rap is not music because we have three elements in music: melody, harmony, and rhythm. Like
so stupid. Oh, that's so. First of all, that's not even true, right? Fucking. How old is John Cage even still alive?
Maybe I actually don't know.
Like people were pushing these boundaries, like in the Impressionist period, right? Like these boundaries have been pushed a long time ago. The idea that like music has to have these three structures, like Jesus Christ, you're like in classical like era music, you're locked into like 200 years ago if you're using these archaic definitions. It's so dumb. Oh, it's so stupid. His takes are so dumb.
Have you ever heard of a dude named Victor Wooten? He's a bass player.
No, I have not.
Really, really just phenomenal bass player you should check out if you're ever interested. He has this book called The Music Lesson, where it's essentially like semi-fiction from his own experiences, and he kind of makes lessons out of it. And the book is basically structured around how those three elements tell very, very little of the story, and what he constitutes as elements are notes, which basically consumes melody and harmony into one in his list. And then you've got space, rhythm, what's the other ones? Technique, articulation, feel, listening. That's a really big one that he puts in there. Like there's so many things that you miss when you just look at it in those three ways. And when you look at it in that fuller list of other categories, like rap covers or just hip hop and just other things in general, just covers so fucking many of those.
Yeah. And that would be a thing where I would say, like, just take a step back and use your ear. Like, you're clearly listening to a song. Like, this is music. Like, obviously, right? Yeah, it's dumb.
I think I remember you on stream watching the Adam Neely video where he's breaking down, like, the white supremacy of music in Western society or whatever.
No, yeah, I remember that video.
There's one thing in there that I very much appreciated, or that seems to be true, is, like, our Western society's attempt at trying to objectify a lot of it
is cringe. I agree with that.
Yeah. There's so much subjectivity to it that if you think about it in trying to seek the objective, perfect song or whatever, like you're just missing so much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, I should have been working on my manifesto. I need to sleep. Sorry, but
I'm ready to hit that unsubscribe button from Vosh's YouTube channel as soon as you drop that.
Yep, hodl, yeah. Okay, well, hey, listen, thanks a lot. I appreciate the conversation. If anything comes up,
yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, feel free to shoot me a message or whatever. And yeah.
Cool.
All right, have a good one, man. Bye.
Have a good night.
Fuck, I need to stop streaming past my scheduled time, guys. I'm fucking my life up.